Yo, what's going on guys, Space Kong here. I hope you're all doing well. And last night we reached 100 subscribers. Yes! Thanks guys, I really appreciate the help and support you've given me. It really means a lot. And as promised, when we reach 100 subscribers, I'll show you some of my builds. And the one I've got to show you today is a very interesting build. It's a Vampire Nightblade tank. And I know some of you out there are probably thinking,
but Nightblades can't tank and even vampires.
which is totally not true, because I've seen Dragon Knight healers and a Sorcerer tank. Basically, you can make any build to suit your playstyle, especially with the One Tamriel update releasing all the new armor sets. Because it kind of used to be that Dragon Knights were the tanks, Templars were the healers, Sorcerers and Nightblades were the DPS, but that's not true anymore. But anyway, let me show you how the build works. First up, these are my fully buffed stats. So you can see what I've done is I put all my attribute points into the health, and my maximum health is 72,000, and that's purely what I base my build around. I've got 10,000 maximum magicka and 10,000 stamina, and you're probably thinking, oh well, for a tank you're going to need at least 30-40k, but no, that's not true. If you've got great resource management, then you'll be totally fine. The only tanks that need a lot of stamina is ones that need to block, and this build does not block. I mean, only for heavy attacks. It's based solely around a skill called Bone Shield in the Undaunted skill line, which what it does is it gives you a 37% of your max health as a damage shield, and if you have all your points in Bastion, you get even more. Which all in all gives me a 35k damage shield, and that's a lot, and it's a very cheap skill to use as well. And if by some means they manage to get through the shield, they still have a 72k health to chip down, which is going to be slow. And also, being a vampire, when your health drops below 50%, you take 33% less damage, which is very tanky. And also, being a vampire means you have the Vampiric Drain ability, which essentially means the lower your health is, the more health you recover when you use the skill. It can go up to 22k health per second. So when you reach 10k health, you just pop up your shield for 35k and then use Vampiric Drain and you'll be back to full health in 4 seconds. But I'll explain more about that later on in the video. Let me show you my gear setup. So let's start with the jewellery and work my way up. Okay, so we have 5 piece of the green packed armour, and with this essentially it's a health set. It gives you lots of max health and health recovery, which you need being a vampire because you lose a lot of health recovery. The armour's a bit of a mishmash because, well, I don't have the greatest gear. It's not all divines and infused, but I've done the best I can. Basically, they're not the easiest things to farm, and trying to get the weapons was very difficult because I got them quite early on. I mean, the bosses and the dolmens themselves are really easy, it's just the drop rate, and well, we all know my drop rate is terrible. I'm also rocking a 5-piece set of the Plague Doctor's armour, which essentially is another health gear. It doesn't matter what order you wear these in, they're both heavy sets. So you can start to see where I'm getting that 72k health from, what with the Nightblade passives and the heavy armour passives. And you'll see what I mean when I say that my armour's kind of a bit shit right now with the traits. See, I've got Prosperous, and basically to get the best out of this you're going to want Infused. I know a lot of people think Divines, but nah, because you're going to want to make your maximum health glyphs the highest they can be. And for the shoulders I'm using the Bogged on the Night Flame set. I'm only using 1 piece though, purely for the max health, and the same for the helmet. I'm only going to use 1 set piece. So for the helmet I'm using more of Infernal, but you can use any head and shoulders piece you want that gives max health. There are so many of them, more so than any others. On my weapons bar I'm using 1 green packed shield, and I'm going to use 1 Plague Doctor's weapon. The reason why I do this is so when I switch my weapons I have exactly the same buff. I'm still using a 5 out of 5 set. As for the weapons, I'm using the axe and the mace. Ideally you're going to want the charged trait, because the set works around this weapon as well. For the resource management, you're going to need the absorb stamina enchantment. And basically this, with leeching strikes, gives you a lot of stamina back. And the reason why I have an axe and a mace is purely just to tell my bars apart, because if you have the same sword or the same axe, it's going to get confusing. And for the mace, it doesn't really matter what trait I have, because I'm not really going to be using that bar. That's mainly a buff and debuff bar. And as for food, you're going to want max health and stamina regen. So I recommend that the tripe trifle. Yeah, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. But basically you get this from the Rothgar quests. And I know it says it's only level 1, but it does scale to your level, being the fact that I got it from a DLC area. Okay, so let's talk skills. This is my main front bar. Invigorating Drain. This is the main heal that we use. The lower your health, the more health you regenerate. And also gives you 5 ultimate every 1 second for 3 seconds. This skill is perfect, and it's the reason why I never go down. And it's great for trolling people in duels, because it also stuns them for 3 seconds while you get your max health back. Next up we have Leeching Strikes. Now this is crucial to the build. Not only does it restore 310 magicka, 316 stamina, but 4% of your max health while toggled. So essentially, once you've toggled it on, you don't need to touch it again for the whole fight. Unless you switch bars, that is. But it costs absolutely nothing, and the fact that it lowers your weapon power and spell power by 17% makes no difference, because you're a tank, you don't need to do damage anyway. But like I was saying earlier, with the great resource management, use Leeching Strikes, and the enchantment on your weapon has a 100% greater chance of using its effect. Basically your bone shield is not going to cost anything, because you're going to regen more stamina than it costs to use. Which brings us to our next skill, Bone Surge. Now this is the bread and butter of the build. And when you put all your champion points into the Bastion line, this is going to give you a 35k damage shield, and for just 3.5k stamina is really cheap. And like I said with the previous skill, you're basically going to get all your stamina back, because while this shield's active, you're going to be using your light and heavy attacks along with your Leeching Strikes, and on top of that you have 2100 stamina recovery. And we can also fit a debuff on this bar, Dark Shades. Now I know a lot of people don't want to use this, but it's great for tanking. And what it does is it summons 2 shades to fight for you for 20 seconds, and each shade deals 310 magic damage, which you don't really need because you're a tank. You're not really meant to be doing damage, but I mean it helps anyway. But mainly what you're looking for is the minor maim that it causes, and reduces their damage done by 15% for 4 seconds, and the fact that you've got 2 of them attacking, it's going to be constantly active. And of course, as every tank needs, Ransack. It's a very cheap taunt, basically costs nothing with your stamina regen, and it also affects them with Major Fracture. So you reduce their physical resistance by 5280 for 12 seconds, which is really good because the taunt lasts 15 seconds. And you also get Minor Resolve, increasing your physical resistance by 1320 for 12 seconds. And here's your ultimate, Bolstering Darkness. Now this is kind of where I get the Immortal Vampire name from, because you're not immortal all the time, but you can be for 17.8 seconds. Because once you cast this down, once you're inside the circle, you take 30% less damage, and if you flip on over to your back bar, you're going to have the Mist form, which also protects you for 70% damage. So essentially you're getting 100% damage reduction. Immortal, right? And it's very cheap to use, especially with the Vampiric Drain giving you 15 ultimate for 3 seconds. And you can just keep spamming that as much as you like. You can use this ultimate so many times. So let's check out the back bar. This is the Mist form I was talking about. I actually meant Elusive Mist, that morph. And instead of it being 70%, it's actually 75%. And I keep this on purely for the ultimate on the front bar. You can combine them both and become immortal. But if you wanted, you could also use it to get yourself out of a jam, because it also gives you Major Expedition for 4 seconds. And for the next skill I use Mirage, which basically gives you Major Evasion, Minor Resolve and Minor Ward, increasing your dodge chance by 20% and your physical and spell resistance by 1320 for 26 seconds. But it's only on level 1, I still need to level it up, so it'll probably be even longer. But I don't really use this skill, only if I'm in a tight jam or if there's a boss that does a load of damage, but it doesn't really matter because when you've got your 35k shield and 72k health, you don't really need these kind of things, but it's there as an extra thing, you know, just as a backup. And it's kind of the same with Unstoppable. Like, you don't really need it, but it's nice to have it there because it gives you Major and Minor Resolve, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 5280 for 14.5 seconds, and I still need to level this up as well. But it does grant you immunity to knockback and disabling effects for 5 seconds, which is pretty good. Reaper's Mark. Now I've only got it up to level 2, so I need to level up even more, but it's a very good debuff, especially for boss battles. And it also works great in dueling and in Cyrodiil. And what it does is it reduces their physical and spell resistance by 5280 for 20 seconds. I mean, I'm only on the 2nd upgrade so far, so it could be longer when I upgrade it to level 4. But it's also great for when you're taking out mobs. So say if there's like, I don't know, 20 of them attacking you, and if you cast this on one of them, as soon as they die you get 72% of your max health back, and you gain Major Berserk, increasing your damage done by 25% for 5 seconds. Well, you don't really need the Major Berserk, but the 72% of your max health is a lot considering you have 72k of it. Inner Fire. Now this is just the range taunt. I don't really need it for anything else other than the range taunt, to say if someone in my team's getting aggro and I don't really want to use my stamina running over there, I just grab them, pull them in. Easy as that, really. Sturdy Horn. This is my 2nd ultimate. I use this for my teammates if they're in any trouble. And basically what it does is it just raises their max magicka health and stamina by 10%, and also my allies gain Minor Resolve and Minor Ward, increasing their physical and spell resistance by 1320 for 37 seconds, which is quite a lot. I'll show you some of the passives as well that I use. I max out Pressure Points, which increases your critical strike and spell critical ratings for each assassination ability slotted. I mean, you don't really need it, but if you've got the skill points you might as well have it. Hemorrhage. Now this one's good to have because it's not for you, it's for your allies. Basically, when you get a successful critical hit, it gives them minus savagery, increasing their weapon critical strike rating by 670 for 20 seconds. Okay, and under your shadow skill tree, you're going to have all of these. Basically, refreshing shadows, increase your stamina, health and magical recovery by 15%. This is why Nightblades are great for resource management. Shadow Barrier. This one's good because activating a shadow ability grants Major Resolve and Major Ward, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 5280 for 11 seconds. Dark Vigor. I used to have this one before the One Tamriel update because I was using a different armor set and different skills, but now that I've tweaked it, you don't really need it, but if you want you can get rid of some of your skills that you're not going to use and put some shadow abilities in to increase your max health even further. Dark Veil. This one's fairly simple. Increase your duration of your shadow abilities by 15%. Okay, onto your siphoning skill tree. We're going to have all of these. Catalyst. After drinking a potion you gain 20 ultimate. This with the Vampire Drain is going to give you some ultimate really fast. Not that you really need potions. I mean, you've got the great resource management, so you don't really need to have any kind of potions, so you could just use some crappy level 1 potions just to get your ultimate. Magicka Flood. Increases max magicka by 8% while a siphoning ability is slotted. Well, you've got your leeching strikes, so that alone is giving you 8% more max magicka. Soul Siphoner. Increases the effectiveness of healing done by 3% for each siphoning ability slotted. On your front bar, when you have your leeching strikes, that's going to give you 3% extra health. So when you use your Vampiric Drain, that's going to give you 3% more health. Transfer, activating a siphoning ability, grants you 2 ultimate. This effect has a cooldown of 4 seconds. Well, that's pretty self-explanatory why I would have it, because the faster you get your ultimate, the more you can have your Immortal phase. Okay, and onto your one-handed and shield. I've only got it up to level 46. I'm still working on it. It's a fairly new build, but it's very effective. Fortress, reduce the stamina cost of your one-handed shield abilities by 10% and reduces the cost of blocking by 36%. So yeah, why wouldn't you want this? Sword and Board, increase your weapon damage by 5% and the amount of damage you can block by 20%. Again, very tanky, you're going to want all these. Deadly Bash, although you don't really need it to deal 100% more damage, being a tank and all you're really worried about is the 40% less stamina reduction. Deflect Bolts, I just filled up the skill points now, increase the amount of damage you can block from projectiles and ranged attacks by 15%. Again, another great skill. Battlefield Mobility. This increases your movement speed while blocking by 30%, but when you have 2 skill points, it increases your movement speed by 60%. But like I said before, I haven't maxed this out yet, so I will definitely be getting that skill point in there as soon as I do. Heavy Armour. Now, I'm not going to bother going through all of these, because a lot of them are fairly self-explanatory, but yeah, having Heavy Armour, you're going to want all of these skill points. Although I will talk about the Constitution and Juggernaut. Constitution gives you more health recovery per piece of armour, so 28% altogether, because you're rocking 7 pieces of armour. And the Juggernaut also gives you max health based on how many pieces of armour you have, so 14% more, which also works towards having this build. Okay, onto the Vampire skill line. You're going to need Savage Feeding, which puts your target off balance for 4 seconds. This is great for duels, PvP, and single targets. It won't affect bosses though. Supernatural Recovery, increasing your magicka and stamina recovery by 10%. Again, this is great for resource management and it all works together with this build. Undeath, probably the best tanky vampire move you can have. Reduces damage dealt to you when you fall below 50% health by 33%, and that's a lot of damage reduction. So like I was saying before earlier with the Immortal mode, when you use your ultimate and Mist Form, even if you don't want to use Mist Form, you can still use Undeath because it procs automatically anyway, so thus making you even more invincible, if you know what I'm saying. Unnatural Resistance basically makes your health recovery not so bad being a vampire, but it doesn't really matter with the armor giving you health recovery anyway, but it's good to have it anyway. Dark Stalker, this is good when you're in Cyrodiil, so you can stalk your enemies and move basically at full speed, and it doesn't cost much stamina, so I quite like this one. But in case you're wondering, I stay in stage 4 vampire the whole time, just so we can get all the passives. Fighter's Guild, I have banished the Wicked, although you're not really going to do much killing, but just in case you do get the final blow, it's always good to have an extra ultimate. Undaunted, yeah, you probably guessed it, I'm going to have all the passives in this, just to give me extra max health and stamina, and to give me max health and stamina when I activate a synergy, so it's all really good. If you want, you could have your Undaunted helmets, one in light, one in medium, which could give you 6% more max health, magicka and stamina. But farming a helmet and a shoulder that are going to be the right traits you want is going to take a bit of time, but I didn't really think about it up until now, but essentially you're getting yourself 2% extra max health, magicka and stamina. As for racial passives, yeah, I'm an Imperial, and I'll tell you why right now. I mean, yeah, you get the increased gain experience with one hand and shield line ability. But more importantly, you increase your max health by 12%, which is a lot of health. But on top of that, with constitutioning, you also get 10% max stamina. And last but not least, you have Red Diamond. Your melee attacks have a 10% chance to restore 7% of your max health. 7%, that's a lot of health. Essentially, this build could work with any race, but you won't get anywhere near the same effect as if you're an Imperial. Okay, so let's have a look at the champion points. Okay, so we're going to need Mooncalf and Arcanist, which basically give you stamina and magical recovery. We also have 100 in Blessed and 71 in Elfborn. So Blessed gives you increased healing done by 25%, which is, you know, it's amazing when it comes to your Vampiric Drain. And Elfborn, which increases your damage and healing dealt by spell criticals. Okay, and over to the Warrior, you're going to want 100 in Bastion. This is for your Bone Shield, essentially giving you a 35k damage shield altogether, which is crazy considering you have 72k health. And Quick Recovery. This is for when you're in dungeons and you have healers, so you don't necessarily have to rely on your Vampiric Drain. It's always nice to get a bit of extra healing anyway. As for potions, I don't really need them, but it's always nice to have one of those basic stamina potions. You don't really need anything else. I mean, if you really wanted, you could have like some immovability potions, but you don't really need it. And as for the Munder Stone, I have the Lord, which again increases max health. So if we go into battle, switch to your back bar, use both your buffs, Unstoppable, Mirage, and then debuff the enemy with Reaper's Mark. Switch to your front bar, use Dark Shades as your second debuff, and then use your Bone Shield. And when you're on your front bar, always try to remember to keep your Leeching Strikes toggled on, because that's one of the main sources of your stamina recovery. But as every tank knows, you always need Ransack or Inner Fire to taunt your enemy. Okay, so I skipped it forward a little bit, otherwise this video is going to go on forever. But as you can see, the resource management is still really good considering you only have 10k stamina. It comes back really fast. So the Bone Shield uses up 3,500 stamina and it lasts 5 seconds, and they're not going to go through that in 5 seconds. I mean, they could do if you get hit by the boss's powerful attacks, but any normal attack you're going to last the 5 seconds, you won't even go through it. And another good thing about this tank is he's built for punishment. You can literally get hit so many times and still be fine. I mean, it looks like I've gone down by loads of health, but I've still got over 30k left. Another thing is you don't really need to rely on Luminous Shards either. I mean, you don't really need a healer. It's nice to have one, and it's nice to have Luminous Shards, but essentially you can still work without it. It's pretty self-sustainable. Although the only drawback about being the vampire tank is the fact that your healing is based on enemies, so if there's no enemies you can't heal yourself. But I mean, you're a tank, so there's bound to be enemies. And do you see what I mean by the sustainable stamina? So with the Leeching Strikes, you literally put your Bone Shield up and then light attack, and it puts your stamina up by loads. So if you put it this way, your Bone Shield lasts 5 seconds, and in 5 seconds you can do 4 light attacks. So with your Leeching Strikes, 4 of those light attacks would give you 1,200 stamina. And your glyph that you have on your weapon also gives you 1,200 stamina for 4 attacks. So that's 2,400 stamina on top of your 2,100 stamina that you get for 2 seconds. So that's 4,200 stamina just from your recovery. And mix that with your leeching strikes. You're not losing any stamina at all. Unless you forget to do it, you're not going to lose anything. You're going to keep sustaining your 10k stamina throughout the entirety of the battle. But just in case you do manage to forget and you run out of stamina, you can always have a stamina potion. Or you could just make your life easier and accept the luminous shards, but I mean, if you can run this build properly, you won't need it. It's going to take some time to get used to. It took me about a month to get used to this build. I know, and I still haven't leveled it up completely. But in my opinion, I think Nightblade tanks have the best resource management out of any type of tank. It's a fun build to play, and it's different, you know. I mean, Elder Scrolls, a lot of people always think, oh, you know, you have to suit one category, be it a Dragon Knight, tank or Templar healer, but it's always fun to experiment and play around. You can get some really fun and interesting builds. And although I'm a vampire, I don't really get hurt by fire. I know that most people think, oh, you know, you're a vampire tank, fire's just going to burn you, but if you keep your shields up, I mean your bone shield that is, you won't take any fire damage. Okay, so in this part of the video I'm going to show you how to heal yourself for 22k a second. I did heal myself for 22k in the Molakina fight that I showed you earlier, but it was hard to see, so I'll show you clearly now so you guys don't call me a clickbait scumbag, or you know what I'm trying to say. But the way this works is it heals you for 25% of your missing health, and because obviously this build is based around health, the lower it is, the more you're going to heal yourself, essentially. Usually I like to go around anything between 10 to 20k, but I'm going to show you in a controlled fight, so it's going to be a bit slower, what it's going to be like when I get down to, say, I don't know, 5-10k roughly. So what you do right now is you pop your bone shield just so you got your safety net, so you won't get killed one-shotted whilst you're trying to use your move. And then from there, when your shield's up, just use your vampiric drain and you'll see yourself being healed for 22k a second. See, shield up, drain. Look how fast that was. In literally 3 seconds, full health. I didn't even need the full vampiric drain. You can animation cancel it when you're done. And this works in duels, so you control people, you know, make them think they're winning, and then at the last second you can just turn the tables back on them and back up to full health, and they kind of lose the will to live, that kind of thing. But it works in dungeons, trials, PvP, you know, like Cyrodiil, anywhere. Okay, so in this bit I'm going to show you the reason why I call it the Immortal build. I mean, you will still take damage because of their armor-piercing penetration that most monsters have anyway. So there's going to be a tiny bit of damage getting through, but essentially you're not going to take much at all. It's not going to be enough to kill you or anything, or do any decent amount of damage. Do you see what I mean? You're getting the tiniest amount of damage. It's not going to do anything to you. So let me show you that clip again and I'll explain exactly what you got to do. So this is kind of your oh shit button, like, you know, if you're about to die and it's your last resort. What you do is you slam down your Bolster in Darkness ultimate, which only costs 200 ultimate, which is very cheap. So there it goes. And then from there you switch bars. Then from there you activate your Elusive Mist. And then there we have it. Because you're on such low health as well, you take 33% less damage. The Elusive Mist gives you 75% reduced damage. The Bolstering Darkness ultimate gives you 30% reduced damage. So essentially this is better than the Magma Shell armor from the Dragon Knight skill line. And even though you can't be healed whilst you're in your mist form, you do get a speed boost. You get Major Expedition for 4 seconds, which gives you enough time to get out of there. And then if you switch your bars, you come out of it. And in which case you can be healed and you'll be in a safe location. Usually this ultimate is good for if you run out of stamina. I mean, like I said before, you probably won't run out of stamina, but just in case, it's your old shit button. Because although you can't be healed and you don't have magical regeneration whilst you're in that form, you can regenerate your stamina still, in which case when you break out the form, if you don't want to run away and get healed by your ally, you could just break out whenever you're ready and then activate your bone shield, in which case you've got your 35k damage shield, and then you can just use your vampiric drain again. And now for your resource management. In this part I'll show you how to maintain full bar of stamina the full time. So I'll use my shield a couple of times just to get rid of my stamina, and I can show you just how much I can gain from light and heavy attacks alone. Now if you see, I'm gaining more stamina than I'm using. It's slowly but surely going up. So make sure your leeching strikes is on and your weapon's fully charged with the stamina absorb glyph. And what you do is you pop your shield. 1, 2, 3, 4 hits, pop your shield. 1, 2, 3, 4 hits again, pop your shield. And in between that, if you really want, you can apply your buffs to yourself and debuffs to the enemies. Another thing with Leech and Strikes is it doesn't just give you stamina, it gives you magicka and it gives you 4% of your max health. That's a lot of health. Okay, well I hope you guys found this video useful. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please leave a like and subscribe. Again, as always guys, have yourselves a great day. Peace!